right? And so therefore, I feel like it degrades the value of the communication. It's kind of like having a poster in the intersection of the busiest city of the world, right? And you're standing there with the little billboard, and it's like, hey, this is me. So I'm the guy who drops the billboard and then heads for the mountains. so yeah, and so anyways, there's nothing wrong with it. I understand from a marketing standpoint, and if you're also trying to share ideas, well, then you have to share ideas where people are. You can't share it by sitting on top of a mountain somewhere. No one will see you, or no one will witness it. Um, anyways, so go ahead.
So, but you did start like from technology. How that has its, because our theme also today is like tech and sub energies, and how much
Yeah, I
does
remember
your
this. Yeah,
technology has changed like over the years?
sure. So I worked. I explained. I worked for a lot of the Fortune 500 companies, and then I also participated in several startups, sometimes simultaneously. Like for example, I worked with Compaq prior to HP, and then once they got merged with HP, I also worked with HP for a year or two. IBM, Dell, and all these guys, Microsoft. I closed the ending of my career, the 20 years. 8 years of that was I converted to what's called ITHR. So I'm still in IT, but now since for that time period I was experienced. So because of my experience, they said, "Why don't you hire the people we need here at IBM?" So I was doing the HR for IT people at IBM. Um, and so in that process, I had to know the skill set, but I wasn't hands-on, meaning I'm not writing code, I'm not setting up networks, I'm not administrating networks, I'm not doing anything with infrastructure. I'm just looking at the human resources, evaluating their talent, and then placing them in the companies based on their skill sets, right? So it was more HR related, but I had to have an IT background in order to make those decisions. Um, so what I'll say is what I learned in that process is some of the scary stuff that happens kind of behind the curtains at IBM, right? And so everyone associates IBM as the old technology company of the world, and so in the modern world, IBM doesn't have much influence as far as amongst the general public. People say, yeah, I know IBM. They work in the background somewhere, but it's not something that we see up front, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so when you get into IBM, you find out that, hey, the biggest R&D department, pretty much of all the companies in America, is held by IBM, and a lot of that was in Austin, Texas, which is where I lived. So the fastest computer in the world at that time was called Roadrunner. This is in the early 2000s, like post 9/11, and then it changed to Watson, um, and these are all IBM computers. So. Uh, Nothing wrong with that. I met with all of their research development teams, and even astronauts, because we worked closely with NASA, and so we would place engineers at IBM who would then work on projects at NASA. So it was all fun and interesting. It was exciting. I felt privileged to be a part of that process, and to be able to call that work. It was fun. It was exciting, but at the same time, the kind of decisions they were making, financial decisions, and how they affected the economies of the local cities that they had their offices in, that became disturbing. Because I was, many times sitting with national directors of IBM in Austin, where they would use it's like a model of the United States with little Lego pieces on top of it, and so they would transfer money, and those each Lego piece, depending on the color it is the amount of investment they're willing to do or they're currently doing in that particular area. So they would move these little Lego pieces around to show that, hey, we're gonna start moving money, our income revenue. We're gonna start showing that the income that we're getting from Austin, we're going to be showing that for New York, and we're going to be showing our Washington state income for here. So they would be moving 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars around as if it was a joke, right? This is not money that typically normal people deal with, but companies, deal with billions of dollars. This is a couple of $100 billion company. So they impact the society. So by moving that money from Austin to, let's say, New York State, it affected the entire economy of the city that we were living in, right? Because that could not be shown as taxable revenue, right? And I saw the effects of that, and I was like, this is weird. Why would they do that? Like, these decisions didn't make sense to me either. So
Why they're doing it? Like they
I,
would grow the
saw some of the corruption, and then some. Go ahead.
No, please go on.
Go ahead.
So it was mostly corruption. It was mostly to grow the company.
Yeah, you were locked up. Go ahead again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
So it was mostly because of corruption.
I can hear you now.
To find the best way to grow the company, or both, or something else.
Yeah, every decision was legal according to U.S. law, right? Meaning you can, show your income. Like if you're a multinational corporation, there are so many tax loopholes and other financial tools you can use to play around with money or to. It's all legal, but the way it's done, if you're a layman like myself and you're watching it happen in front of you, I just wasn't be in that room. Basically, that's what I'll tell you, right? So for me to be in that room, to witness it, it disheartened me and it gave me a bad taste in my mouth, right? I was like, ugh, I'm part of this. So for example, they would use Manpower, which is their sister company, and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and hire, 100,000 contract employees over here in Austin, right? And in return, we're going to buy $100 million of IBM equipment, right? So neither is there a need for those resources, neither is there a need for the equipment. It's just so that IBM can show their quarterly returns at a certain level, right? And Manpower can show that they've used their resources properly. And so IBM would go ahead and would fire 50,000 permanent employees, bring on 100,000 contractors from Manpower just to prove to the books that everything is going well or whatever, So these kind of decisions which affect lives, which has nothing to do with real work, it all has to do with excess profits. These kind of decisions, although they were legal, although they were, kosher, as you say, they were corrupt in their intentions. Meaning the end result which they were achieving was, a profitable quarter, no matter what. And so I just got disturbed seeing that. I didn't mind the technology. I was like, cool, this is interesting. It's fun. It's exciting. Making things happen faster and faster and faster. That's what technology is. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. But this financial piece was really hard for me to digest, like how they played around with hundreds of millions of dollars. And then I was responsible for some of the schmoozing, as they call it there in Austin, schmoozing of IBM senior managers. So taking them out to eat and their lavish, taste buds, they have to have certain bottles of wine and certain restaurants and blah, blah, blah. And how my company would fully comp that, right? Meaning would pay for that because that's just part of business etiquette. You do that when you have a, $10 million account with IBM. And so those kind of things, I just, I just looked too deeply into it and it disturbed me. And then I started researching what IBM is doing, on the back end. Like, what are they, why are they so quiet on the user front, and why are they so important in front of all the other tech companies? Why do all the other tech companies bow down to them, whereas the users say, oh, IBM, that's an old company. Yeah. So I got into some of that too. And it was, again, I guess, disturbing to summarize it. Go ahead.
I
Go
can
ahead.
imagine. It's a different thing to be legal. It's a different thing to be ethical, right? Completely different. And
Ah, there you go. I'm glad you used that term. Thank you.
the thing is, with technology, it can practically accelerate everything we do, but on the same time, it can accelerate things that we haven't really thought very well. So it accelerates it's just a tool, right? It accelerates things. But why it will accelerate, we have to decide.
Exactly. Yes, agreed.
So the question is like where are we accelerating towards, and why we
Ah,
want to
yes.
accelerate
Okay.
so much?
Sure. Right. So, for the past 100 years, or maybe more, I think progress is measured by how much you accomplish, right? Um, I think the parameters were different prior to that. I think there was more wisdom applied towards progress. Now it's all about intelligence, right? So intelligence looks at the numbers and results. Wisdom looks at the long-term effects as well, which I think intelligence kind of denies or overlooks somehow. Um, and I'm not trying to sound intelligent here, but but I'm trying to describe this the best that I can. So please forgive me if I misquote something here. But what I'd like to say is I think where this speed and to accomplish a task faster than we were able to accomplish it years before, yes, there is merit to that, and yes, it does. It is something measurable and provable, which is the scientific method, right? If it's measurable, then it agrees with the scientific method. If it's not measurable, then that's just a theory, right? You cannot prove that. So the speed, I think we right now, specifically in the time we live in, I think we're going beyond the human capacity to understand the speed, right? The speeds that we're achieving moving forward are beyond what our normal average human brain is able to, to understand. Like we cannot understand the power of, for example, uh, a D-wave quantum computer, which
No.
can make, let's say, a trillion calculations per second. Like you can set up a war game on a quantum computer, and it can factor in every single nation state, their military standing, the amount of population they have, the attitude of the people in that country, the temperature, the weather, right? Take in a billion million factors and then apply the war game and give you real tangible results, meaning provable results, right? To tell you what would happen in such a scenario, right? And even taking into consideration all of the legislation of each country, like who has contracts with who and why, a certain country would step in to assist another and blah, 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 blah. So and it can do all of this in a few, seconds or a minute or something, right? Now, as a human being, who has a brain, who's able to think, we can talk, like I expressed it to you, what I understand a quantum computer can do. But can I fathom all of that data together, right?
No.
And can I understand what it means to process all of that and to be accurate at the same time? No, I cannot. It's beyond my comprehension, right? So the speeds that we've achieved now in technology uh, is something which delves into the territory of what I like to call, or is in simple terms, I refer to as either magic or black magic, right? If you like this magic, then you could call it white magic or just magic in general, but I call it black because I feel it is a dark art uh, due to the way it's being applied, right? A war game is not necessarily a fun thing, or consider, at least I don't consider it a positive thing to do. But so anyways, so
Hi,
Oh, I think I
cute.
lost you there. Okay. If you get into the realm, oh, sorry, the specific category of quantum computers and how they operate, uh, the only way you can describe it to an average person is magic, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so I have an understanding of this, and this is the way I describe it, that technology is using material objects to achieve what used to be called magical.
We lost you again.
Maybe I could state that better if I think
Now,
about it. I don't know. I'm just
now
speaking off the cuff here. So, but go ahead. Does that answer your question?
So, how much do you think of what we believe to be magic right now that will be able to be explained with technology in the
Go
next
ahead.
5 to 10 years? Did you hear me?
Go ahead.
Um,
Hello.
so can you hear me now? Can you hear me? I think we lost you. Can you
Say one more time, please. Sorry.
can you hear me now? Hi,
No,
can you
if you
hear
could
me?
repeat one more time, please. It was
Sure.
breaking up.
So I'm wondering how much do you feel or do you think that from what we
Please.
believe
Okay.
to be magic right now will be explained through technology in the next couple of years?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Okay. So what I understood is, uh, do I feel that what we believe is magic now, will it be explained as, a normal application of technology 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so okay, yeah, sure. I mean, it's all, yeah, it's all very strange. I mean, honestly, if I look at my career, I started I was in the business school at the University of Houston. It's called the Bauer School of Business, and I was studying marketing. But at the time, it was the '90s. It was like '93, '94, and I saw Bill Gates' progress and his company Microsoft, and how it was expanding at a rate we haven't seen any company expand at the time. And this was one of the first of the technology companies which showed how you can go from a garage to a metropolis of all Microsoft buildings within months or within a year. It was amazing, the progress and the amount of money they were making and the amount of positive change, I thought at the time, they were causing by allowing all the companies of the world to use their office-based products and make their companies more efficient and also more more productive.
Mhm.
So I joined. I signed on. I basically took a course for Microsoft certifications and became a Microsoft certified trainer. And so at that time, it was technology. It was a tool, right? And it was clear to me that it was a tool, and it was really, it looked like it was very going to be very beneficial for everyone. I joined and I participated, and I even had the opportunity. This is actually one of the greatest or the climaxes of my technology career. I was assigned to train the Native American community in Dallas, Texas, technical skills. And so, yes, I was working with technology, but I got to meet a spiritual people, right? and face-to-face interaction with them and spending time with them, yeah, they were more concerned with learning the technology, but in our break times, I had plenty of opportunities to, ask about their culture and their spiritual understanding of the world, and what they feel about their ancestors and what they see moving forward for America. And these
Mhm.
people, mind you, they were only enrolled in my this tech course after taking a DNA test. So there would be blood tests, and they would determine how much percentage of their blood was actually Native American, and only after that would they be enrolled. They had to have 45%. And so the tribes that I had in my room were Comanche, and I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, it was Comanche and Navajo,
Mhm.
but majority were Comanche. Um, and so, after that experience, which was a couple of years, after that, technology was moving even faster. I joined the Fortune 500 world. And so, computers and software and all that stuff was great. But where it led towards was that technology was the front, and the driving force behind it was wealth. So just like all the other corporations in the world, the tech companies were also solely interested in the, you know,
You're
yeah.
always breaking.
So they were only interested in, yeah, I know. So I'm just repeating. I saw you got cut off. So they were more interested in the amount of wealth or their quarterly returns, and that became the sole focus of all the companies I worked with and for. And I do understand that, but at the same time, uh, I feel like the motivation behind what we were doing with technology also changed. And then this is where the social networking world came up, and the internet became, more expensive, and we got into 2G and then 3G and then 4G technology. So all of this technology, G representing the generation of the technology, was still, in my opinion, it was humanly comprehensible, meaning a human being could sit down and comprehend these speeds and the hardware and the communication channels that we have. But now moving forward, I feel like the technology is getting to a place where now the human mind is not able to grasp what all this technology is capable of doing and how fast it is capable. So when you asked the question regarding magic, right? That what do we call magic now, and will it be considered just a side effect of technology in the future? Yes, definitely, and that's kind of it's kind of bothersome to me. I don't like the fact that technology is the missing link when it comes to full governmental control over a society. So I was actually working in the field that is working to provide that. It doesn't look like a weapon. It doesn't act like a weapon, but it is the most powerful weapon in the world, right? And so it was my inability to understand that as I was working in the field, and now because it's almost as clear as daylight, it bothers me. And anyways, I wrote a lot to get my thoughts out on paper. It was kind of an psychological exercise, self psychological analysis, I guess. I was being my own therapist. And so I wrote everything out, whatever I felt. And so I tied this technology, and maybe others I think have done this too. I'm not sure. I can't quote anyone, but I tied it to uh, historical events that have happened in the past. For example, if we go to the Egyptian times of
Mhm.
Pharaoh and so forth, I feel like pyramids were also a form of technology of that time, right? And what they were used for, how they were used. I mean, that's all up for speculation. I think the clarity of that history is yet to be understood by the mainstream, but there are some alternative viewpoints and opinions that are out there, which I, for the most part, agree with. That Just as you and I right now are using two smartphones or smart devices to communicate with each other, we look at these devices and we call them technology tools or smartphones or what have you, but they are materials found within the earth, compacted together to perform this magical activity, which we call, teleconferencing, right? The main ingredient that brings these pieces of earth to life is the electrical current that we send through them, right? That's what gives them life and the ability to do what we're doing right now. Just that alone, if we stop using it and stop taking it for granted and just sit back and think about it for a second, that is magical, right? In its essence, it's bringing dead earth to life is essentially what we're doing here, right? And making it a channel to communicate with one another, right? Or using it as a channel to communicate. It's amazing. It's absolutely fascinating. Um,
And it is
but at
the
the same
essence
time,
of, yeah, alchemy or magic or however you want to call it.
yes, yes, definitely. And so the pyramids or any of the Egyptian tools of that era, you want to date them back to 4,000 years, or you want to go with the 6,000 figure. There's many opinions on that too. 6,000. There's people who say no, maybe it's 8,000, and Gobekli Tepe over there in Turkey is 12,000 or something, and they had some similar kinds of uh, buildings or artifices, which we could call technology if we used it in a broad sense of the term, right? Which is earth materials selectively compacted together in a particular order and fashion, uh, and then electricity passed through them, right? And so, the common or the average person would say, well, the electricity was not until several thousand years after that. But then we bring to their attention that, yes, you're right. However, there is natural electricity via thunderbolts, right? That's always been there. And it's a matter of harnessing that thunderbolt, right? And so how to do that? Well, then you find the most conductive material on earth. And so the most conductive material is gold. So you take gold and you put it on the highest man-made peaks on earth. And those were the pyramids for over 4,000 or 5,000 years. It was the tallest buildings ever created by man for at least 4,000 years. No one could build something taller than them. And you cap the top of the pyramids with solid gold, and you've got the highest conductors in the world. And so uh, what we're experiencing right now during the corona crisis is a lockdown where we have inactivity on the streets, and what's happening is nature is coming back into those environments which it's been away from for at least 200 years, right? But for thousands of years, nature has been there. Like there's dolphins coming in the canals of Italy. There are wild pigs I saw recently traveling through Paris, the streets of Paris, right? Even in Pakistan, in a masjid near my house, this was just yesterday. An eagle came with his two baby eagles and sat in the masjid, and this has never happened. A brown eagle with his two baby eagles is sitting in the window of the masjid because of the lack of activity. So once man becomes still, nature comes towards him, right? You don't have to go to the safari trips to go find nature. That's the mechanical way of interacting with nature. You just have to stay where you are and make sure that you and everything around you is absolutely still. And after a few hours, I've even done this myself. I read a book outside in the patio, and I can next time I look up, it's 3 hours have passed, and there's 6 or 7 different types of birds sitting all around me, and it's like, what are these guys doing here, right? If I was walking around or eating or move, having, performing some kind of action, they wouldn't dare come in that area. But because I'm absolutely still, nature is coming towards me. And so in the same way, if you have these pyramids with gold caps on top of them, right, the most conductive material on earth, Well, and there's no activity on the rest of the earth. Well, even though you're in a desert, there's going to be a cloud that's going to say, "Hey, I found gold over here. Let me go and strike a bolt of lightning on it." Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just giving it a voice. I know the clouds don't speak, but still. So this is all theory, right? Because no one is entertaining this subject, and no one is talking about technology in its true essence, which is uh, earth elements, right? Elements that come out of the earth. They're compacted together. Yes, there's a science and thought process behind how to organize these wires and where to put the crystal and where to put the magnet and so forth. But the point is that it's all earth. The only difference is that we've added electricity. We have the ability to make compact sources of electricity called batteries, right? And we're able to pass electricity through this earth material, and then it comes to life, right? So I believe the pyramids and these other, ancient artifacts, they were also advanced technology tools, but they used a much greater source of electricity than we have today. And so their end product must have been equally much greater than what we have today, meaning their magic was more magical than our uh, FaceTime conversation or whatever this tool, the StreamYard conversation we're having, right?
I'm pretty
Uh,
sure of that. And the interesting part is like that you can observe that in highly intensified locations on the earth, our technology stops working most of the times. It's very interesting to see the interruptions that either a human conversation or a geographic location or an artifact or a monument can actually create in our technology.
Definitely agreed. Yes.
So why do you think this is happening? Like, do you have an opinion of how are we actually interrupting, how our fields are actually able to interrupt the fields that are reaching our phone so it can function, for example? Because this is not something.
Yeah. So at least I think two or three of your conscious. Oh, I lost you there.
I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
I lost you there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but now we're back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Say again.
So talking about this exact subject, it's like, how do you believe that the field, our field, as a person, can interrupt the technology
Mm,
that we know and are using today? So why do you, when you get into an interesting geomagnetic location that has a much more intensified field, our phones stop working, or when we
mm.
get into a spiritual place, all of a sudden things start missing
Good.
from our phones and like
Yeah.
all weird things happen.
Yes. Agreed. Yes. So you're asking why, right? Um, so this is a subject which, by the way, I applaud you. Last night I had the opportunity to go through one, two, three Conscious Gems introductory videos. So the intro, part one, two, and I think, yeah, that's it. But it was enough for me to understand where you are coming from and your breadth of knowledge on this very, I would say, hidden aspect or uh, uh, in addition to being hidden, it's also under speculated, meaning this is something that's not even considered as a topic of discussion, especially by mainstream, but even our alternative, sources of information. It's very limited on what you are talking about, right? So, I feel excited to be able to interact with you just because you're talking about a subject which really needs to be understood. And it's going to be, fools like me. If you have a fool like me on to speculate or discuss this, then that tells me something, that we have a big lack of resources that that have considered this, that are wanting to talk about it, that have tried to study it, right? And it's very much necessary, very much necessary. I always used to be alarmed at the fact, ever since the smartphone came out, because I'm more of the laptop. I was born in '75, so I was a Microsoft trainer in the early '90s. I was one of the first trainers actually in America in the early '90s, which is called MCT. No big deal. It's just that I knew what was going on, and I hopped on that bandwagon before everyone else. That's all. So it wasn't due to my excess knowledge or skill set. It was just excellent timing. And but anyways, it is doing that and going through all the generations of technology from 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G to where we are now. I can honestly say that I always used to be alarmed that when this technology comes out, there are no health warnings given with it. Like, for example, I'm in a server room at the Compaq headquarters in Houston, Texas, or the HP headquarters in Houston, and I'm like, dude, this feels weird. I'm in a place that's air conditioned, not for me. It's air conditioned for the computers. There's a vacuum above me. There's a vacuum below me, sucking out all the, God forbid, tiny particles of dust and, whatever it is that may or may not be floating in the air, just to protect these computers. And I'm in here to go monitor them or to replace one of them or whatnot. And I wonder if this is harmful to me, because I'm the type of guy, that never goes to a hospital. Like, the only reason I would go to a hospital is if a part of my body is falling off and I have to hey, doctor, can you put this back together? Right. And so, I've been fortunate. I should also mention that I've been fortunate that I haven't had to visit hospitals on the regular basis. But at the same time, I'm the kind of guy that I would never subject myself to MRI or CAT scan or anything. I think that's ridiculous, right? When my child, when I was married in my past life, and my child was to be born, the nurses and doctor would say, hey, do you want to find out if it's a boy or girl? So I'm the guy who says no, and I said no, and we didn't find out. So I was like, this is the miracle of birth, is to be surprised. Like, you're taking all of the, the excitement out of the activity. They show you a picture. Here's your baby, what he looks like according to a black and white sonargram inside your mom, your the womb. And it's like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to know what his heartbeat is. I like technology, but I think this is intrusive technology that insults the spiritual nature of our existence, right? And so that type of technology disturbs me, and builds a hatred for technology within me. And so I'll say I was fortunate that I lived in a city like Austin, Texas, where we had conscious-minded people who were practicing things like home birth, right? With no apparatuses, no beeping machines, no fluorescent lamps, right? And then, with crystal healers and these kind of things, people who are considered nutcases in America, I was surrounded by them in Austin. And so that was also a blessing.
Tell us a little bit more about it, because I think that what you're explaining, I know that in the US it's quite common, and in Europe it's really, really growing. But I guess that in Pakistan it's not so well known.
Yeah, it's not. And so in Pakistan, it's like this. The people who are spiritual in nature in Pakistan, they practice their spirituality without recognizing it, because they live in utter simplicity. And the lack of ambition and the utter simple lifestyle that they lead, especially on top of the mountains, having a wood fire cooked meal is an everyday thing. For someone who comes from the modern world, for them, this is something that they want to take a picture and post it on Instagram, because it's like, a wood burning fire, and you've got a kettle made of iron on top of it. Wow! And this is your house. We're not even camping, right? This is amazing. And so people from the modern world, even myself, we get excited by seeing this, but for them, it's their everyday life. Hey, go get some apples. Where? From the tree. Where else? Right? So these kind of, hey, go get some milk. Where? Oh, from the cow outside. Oh, okay. So these kind of things we're not accustomed to because we come from the modern world, and so these are things that promote, invigorate, and what do you call it? Reinforce the spirituality or the spiritual nature of that person. And when you experience it, you also feel it, right? And when you consume those things, they have a spiritual effect as opposed to just a nutritional effect or a satisfying effect, right? So they don't recognize all of the the subject matter where as far as like crystals and what chakras are, or what meditation can do, and what are the levels and stages. They can't explain or express it, but they certainly live a spiritually focused lifestyle. And even though they're surrounded by the material world, which is maybe one car drive away or one phone call away from them. Do you mind holding on 1 second?
Sorry?
Do you mind holding on 1 second?
Sure, no problem.
Sure, thank you. I'll be right. Name Uncle Balta. Hello? I don't even know
Hi.
what to call. We haven't said each other's names yet. So what do I call you?
Aliki.
Aliki?
Aliki. With K.
Aliki. Oh, okay. Just as it's written. Okay. Aliki, do you mind if I put you on hold for? Yeah, you can call me Q. Yeah, I go by Q.
Okay.
Do you mind if I put you on hold for just a couple of minutes? I have some people here that I need to exit.
I will have to go in a couple of minutes, so maybe we can conclude
You do?
for today.
Okay.
We take it to another.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Sounds
and
great.
I would love to
It was lovely. Yeah.
subject and talk more, because I think there are subjects that are not very touched, but they're very important for us to start understanding our powers as human beings and what we can create in what we don't see beyond our physical limits. That's why I like to bring these subjects, because they can prove the power.
We didn't get into the heart of your topic, which is the spiritual energies of technology and their subtle effects on the human body or human being. And I would love to get into that. Yeah.
Maybe we can take it to tomorrow if you have time, around the same time.
Sure. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so let's do that. Enjoy your visits.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.